We are coming to you live from our Kukumlemle studios in Accra, live on DSTV channel 421, Go TV channel 144, on your digital television and around the world at myjoyonline.com. The details now. The NPP's General Secretary John Buedu has disclosed to JoyNews that wife of the murdered Infantiman MP Ophelia Hayford has been selected as the parliamentary candidate to contest the upcoming elections. The MP Ekokwansa Hayford was seeking re-election in the upcoming polls. In fact, he was returning from a campaign when he was attacked on the Abeadze Dominase Abeadze Duazi Mankasim Road at about 1 a.m. Here's a News Desk report.
The whole constituency leadership and party, the regional setup and the national setup, deem it fit that his wife is the backbone of the husband. She knows the constituency very well, and considering the large support that the husband has and the kind of difficulties that the constituency is going through, a lot more of the constituents think that we should let the wife continue.
Well, was this done by acclamation?
We've not yet received a response from the Speaker.
What about your member who is in Parliament as your member of Parliament?
We've not heard from him. Initially, this move was initiated by the regional party in Ashanti region. His attention was drawn to Article 3(9) of our Constitution. That says that a member of the party who stands as an independent candidate against the officially elected member of the party, or who joins or declares his or her support for another political party or for an independent candidate when the party has sponsored a candidate in a general or by-election, automatically forfeits his or her membership of the party. And his attention was drawn to this part of our constitution. He was invited severally to explain to us and also draw his attention to the fact that if he decides to file against the official candidate of the party, he automatically forfeits his membership. So we are only drawing the attention and notifying the general public that all those who will also follow suit forfeit their membership automatically. I think that it is also clear that within 60 days to election, it will be difficult to, if a member resigns or dies or vacates his position.
So you heard the NPP General Secretary John Buedu. The first, he was confirming the news about wife of Ekokwansa Hayford being selected as parliamentary candidate for the constituency. And then later you heard him talk about the Fomena MP, because they've written to the Speaker, Professor Michael Kwe, asking him to declare that seat vacant. And he was just explaining why they did that in tandem with what the Constitution says. And you heard him there with head of our political desk, Evans Mensah. Well, on the issue of the MP's wife replacing him as candidate, this is not the first time the party has made such a decision. MP for Ayawaso West Wogan, Lydia Saira Malhassan, was chosen by the MPP to contest the by-election in that constituency after her husband partner, Emmanuel Tramati Ejako, died in 2018. There's also the Shai Osudoku example. Linda Akwele Oklu, wife of William Oklu, officially declared her intention to contest the seat a week after her husband's burial. Her husband was MP for the area and was seeking re-election in the 2016 elections. He died in an accident at Atridie, close to Draso, on the Kumasi-Accra Road in March 2016. So the question is, are these politically or morally influenced? I'll shortly explain what I mean by that. Head of our political desk, Evans Mensah, will be joining me shortly for some analysis. We'll also be having a political scientist to talk about what this means for the party's internal politics and even the outlook for them, and what it means going into the 2020 elections. You're watching News Desk with me, Benis Abubedu-Lansa. Thanks for staying here on News Desk. The Central Region Police Command has drawn men from over 6 divisions to build the confidence of residents in Mankesim. The service is asking the general public to volunteer information which will lead to the arrest of killers of the MP. President Akufo-Addo on Monday charged the IGP to find the killers at all costs and make them face the law. Richard Kojonyako joined the police and has come through with this report.
It's been 5 days since the MP from Fantiman constituency, called Kwanza Hayford, was shot and killed by gunmen. 2 persons are currently receiving treatment at the hospital over the injuries they sustained. The police in the Central Region have assured they will hunt down the perpetrators of the act and make them face justice. Central Regional Police PRO Irene Sewopon explains why the police have multiplied in their numbers and have pitched camp at Mankesim, all in their bid to get the perpetrators.
The Central Regional Police Command has withdrawn men from divisions, Swedro Division, Mankesim Division, Asinfosu Division, the Regional Police Command. We have support from the Counter-Terrorism Unit and also FPU from Accra. The objective for this patrol is to build the confidence of the general public within Mankesim and its environs. We know what happened on Thursday dawn, that we lost a member of parliament. We want the public to know that when it comes to security issues within Mankesim, the police is on top. We are waiting for information. Investigations are ongoing concerning the incident that happened, that is the robbery. And we are assuring the general public that we will do whatever we can to make sure that the perpetrators are brought to book.
As their activities continue, the police command wants the general public to support them in their efforts to apprehend the suspects by volunteering information.
Again, we are using this video to appeal to the general public that anybody who have information concerning the perpetrators that we are looking for, they should go to the nearest police station, ask for the district or unit commander, and deliver that message to him or her. Or you can call the police hotline on 18555. 18555. So this evening, we are going to show force, and also we promise that this activity will be sustained and the police command will keep on changing the strategies so that the criminals will not be used to our mode of operations. Thank you very much.
The stretch that recorded this incident still remains dark because there are no street lights on. Richard Kojonyako, JoyNews, Cape Coast.
So we know the MPP's General Secretary John Boadu has disclosed to JoyNews that wife of the murdered Infantiman MP has been selected as parliamentary candidate to contest the upcoming elections. We've been asking a question about whether this is politically motivated or morally motivated. Joining me for some analysis on this is Evans Mensah. He's head of our political desk. Thank you for joining the program, Evans. So, what may be going through the minds of party leaders when they make such decisions, asking wives of MPs who've died to become parliamentary candidates in their stead?
I mean, it's an interesting question that needs to be examined. The NDC had done it, the MPP had done it twice now in the last 4 years. One of the key things that comes up strongly is the parties want to ride on the sympathy votes. I mean, we're a country that is very emotionally attached to the widow, the concept of the widow, right? And you want to play into that. I mean, the man is dead. The society generally tend to be more sympathetic towards the wife. And if you put the wife up there, you are more likely to get the support of the people. It's a political calculation, I believe, that if political parties make in making this particular decision. But they also explain formally, if you listen to the political parties, they explain formally that the reason why they do this is because the wife are, as they say, behind the husbands. in sort of the campaigning that we see going into an election. And so they believe that the wives sort of know the terrain already and can do the job. I doubt if that is a primary reason why they do this. I want to hedge my bet on the desire by the political parties to, in essence, rake in the sympathy votes, getting obviously the wives on the ticket going into the elections. I believe that is a primary calculation for me for the political parties in making the wives go in when the husbands unfortunately pass on.
So Evans, it's interesting you bring the issue of sympathy votes. I just want to mention that political scientist Dr. Ali Dusedu has joined the conversation. We'll be taking his thoughts shortly. But Evans, it's interesting you mentioned the issue of sympathy because that will mean that the party will get more votes. And that's what I meant by political motivation. But the issue of morality, some have suggested that this may be a way of the party trying to compensate the wife or the families. Do you agree?
Well, listen, in politics, you can't rule anything out. But I doubt if that will be an overriding consideration if you have to compensate the wife for the death of the husband by giving her an opportunity to run unopposed and replacing the husband in the parliamentary elections. If that is a consideration, say to compensate the wife with that position, that will be pretty odd, I guess. Because not every wife wants to be a politician. For me, that's the starting point. Not every wife, especially when your husband just passed on, want to be a politician. I think the parties are making a calculation. Of course, listen, you can actually interpret this within the bigger scheme of inheritance, I guess. When a husband dies, who legitimately, even according to the law, interstate succession law and all the other laws that we know, who legitimately inherits the husband's property, most often than not, is the wife and the children. So if you're sort of extrapolating from that analysis, for the political parties, it makes sense. And this is a society that believes in that too. All right. Traditionally also.
Evans,
it makes sense.
I'll come back to you for us to zero in on the Infantiman constituency and why the party wants this killed MP's wife to replace him. We'll be talking about the dynamics and all. But let me bring in Dr. Ali Dusedu. Thank you for joining the program. He's a political scientist. So we just had Evans mention the bit of inheritance, but we know we practice a democracy. So how does this, if I may put it safely say, what is becoming a trend affect parties at the constituency level? Hello, Doc? Can you unmute your device? Sorry, we can't hear you. Hello, Doc?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, great, we can hear you. Yes, please.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I was making the point that I agree with Evans' analysis on the fact of political capital. This has already the issue of sympathy vote. People often think that when you have a very sad incident happen this way, and then you choose a very close family relative of the deceased, it is likely going to win you sympathy, and you are likely going to win the seat. And historically, this has actually played off in the Fourth Republic. If you look at Shai Osudoku, it happened. They selected the wife, and the wife won the seat. It happened at Ayawaso West Wagon. They selected the wife, and the wife won the seat. Even if you go back to 2012, the presidential election, when the late Professor Evans Atamils died, people believe the victory of the NDC, led by former President John Dramani Mahama, was influenced by some extent to the issue of sympathy vote. So one, the whole concept of sympathy vote has been working, and it is now going to turn into a kind of precedent where when you have a sitting MP passes on, then eventually you need to select a very close family member who can draw in that sympathy vote, and then the party can retain that particular seat.
All right, but
that's the first thing.
Sorry, I had to cut in there, but this brings us back to the issue of inheritance, sort of what Evan said. But how does that work in a democracy then? Aren't we throwing away our democracy?
I think there are a few dangers associated with this. One, a close family relative or the wife of a deceased MP may not necessarily have the skills and the competence of the MP. Skills and competence are not transferable, and you can't inherit them. So the competency and then the skill of the MP, which he has also learned over time as serving in Parliament, can never be transferred to the wife or any other close relative that may be selected. So the issue is that we have been complaining over the years of the quality of debate and then how parliamentary business is being run. It starts with the quality of the people that we elect into the House of Parliament. I'm not saying the wives who have who have been selected to represent their husbands are not competent. But you see it over the years. It's a kind of thing that we learn over time. And because skills are not transferable, it may be very difficult to assume that the way the husband used to perform, the wife will perform the same way. And if I made a very important point that not all of these people may be willing to be politicians. The fact that my husband is a politician does not necessarily mean I also want to be in active politics. But there's also a trending danger. If you're not careful, wives of MPs who are not in good relations with their husbands could be mischievous about this. If you want to be an MP, pray that your husband dies, or sometimes at the highest level of evil, hire an assassin to deal with your husband, and then you automatically become the candidate and lead in the election for that particular constituency. So I think it's a precedent that, if care is not taken, could be abused, but could also pose danger to our sitting MPs, especially MPs who are not in good terms with their wives over time.
All right, Doc, I'll come back to you shortly. Evans, let me bring you in here. Let's zero in on the Infantiman constituency and why the party will want to field the late MP's wife.
Why wouldn't they? I mean, listen, Infantiman has been one of those interesting constituencies for the MPP. This is a constituency that used to be held in parliamentary terms by Asabi, Stephen Asamoah-Boateng. But traditionally, it's been a place that you can describe as an NDC stronghold. They won it in 1992, 1996, 2000, 2004. Asamoah-Boateng won it. They've taken it back. And then Echo Hayford sort of won it back again. So this is not a safe seat by any stretch of the imagination for the MPP. And it's a reason why once you get an Echo Hayford who manages to perform as creditably as he did in 2016, you need to win that seat back. Because if you don't, it might revert to the NDC. So it is a critical seat. It's not a safe seat. If it was a safe seat, you could put anybody there and expect that you win. And that is why the sympathy vote becomes even more critical now for the MPP. If you put the wife in this seat, the NDC opponent will have a challenge. I mean, first of all, even being, the incumbent is dead. That already causes sympathy already for the party because they've lost the incumbent. Remember that the NDC, even in the constituency, had to suspend their campaign on the wake of the death of the MP. Then you have the wife, who is now the candidate on the ticket. It becomes very complex for the NDC to campaign, and it's an advantage somewhat. I mean, this is a tricky area because this is somebody who's been killed in a tragic, gruesome fashion. But it's somehow an advantage politically for a constituency that is not safe to have the wife rob off from the unfortunate incident. People naturally will be more likely to give this the votes to the wife than to anybody else the MPP might put up in a constituency that is not safe for them. For me, that is one of the key primary considerations that possibly the MPP is making.
Dr. Ali Desaidu, so let's go to the primaries the NPP had, for which the late Ekokwansa Hayford was given the nod to seek re-election on the ticket of the NPP. So he polled 611 votes. He was followed by James Kosa, not too closely though. James Kosa Brown had 265 votes. So clearly the margin was very wide, Dr. Alidu. But in this instance, and looking at democracy, for example, couldn't the runner-up in the primaries be given the opportunity to lead the party?
Yeah, I think it is a possible permutation. One, we are assuming that every voter in that constituency will buy into the sympathy vote. What's the name? Theory. It may not work that way. Not everybody will be sympathetic, even if they are sympathetic to the tragic event that happened. That may not necessarily translate into a voter behavior or voting for that specific candidate. And there are a lot of Ghanaians who are also increasingly becoming wary of the fact that when an MP dies, then you put the wife there and the wife wins. So people are not everybody is in support of that particular idea. And people who are against that idea may sympathize with the wife in terms of morality and humanity grounds, but that may not actually affect the way they will vote. But two, we are kind of closing our democratic principle of people determining who should represent them at the constituency. At the human level, even some MPP supporters may sympathize with the family of the MP and then the wife. But if you had asked them, do you want the wife to be your MP? Some people will have differed. They will have preferred maybe a party member who has been on the trenches with them, who is well known and a grassroots person, actually representing them compared to the wife. So what I agree that this has been working maybe for the past 2 or 3 instances that we've had this an MP dies and then the wife has been asked to go ahead and contest. But the fact that it has been happening doesn't mean that everybody is in support of it. So I believe maybe this could be a test case for us to see whether that precedent should be established over time, especially in cases where it forecloses the ability and the opportunity of the electorates to determine who should represent them. And just because an MP dies, then you put the MP forward. It is not actually hereditary, representing a constituency. It is actually based on the choice of the constituency. But over the years, we need to test that principle, especially in the current case, and see whether she will win again. If she wins, it means Ghanaians are actually buying into that principle, and it may work over time. But if it doesn't win, it means that Ghanaians are increasingly becoming fed up of the fact that when an MP dies, then the wife must automatically represent that MP, whether the constituents like the wife or not.
Doc, I asked you an earlier question. I'm not sure I got an answer to that about how this could impact the democracy and the choice of the people at the constituency level. In the Shayo Sudoku example with the NDC and Madame Oklu, we learned that some members of the party were contesting the decision by the elders to have her stand or replace her husband as parliamentary candidate. How can this affect party at the constituency level?
So you see, in the recently held MPP primaries, there were about 65 or so MPs who were allowed to go unopposed. That in itself brought a lot of issues in some of those constituencies because the people thought that they were not given the opportunity to determine who should represent them as a member of parliament. They believe they should have a say on who becomes their MP, rather than the party just deciding who should replace who or who should contest unopposed. So that is one of the basic, it undermines the basic principle of participation and the people having a say in determining who should represent them at the level of the parliamentary elections. And party primaries are the one of the most important gatekeeper principle. That sort of sieves the best people among the rest, which is determined and endorsed by the people. So under normal circumstances, I think some people, especially serious advocates of democracy, will have wished that the MPP opens up maybe another processes for the people who are interested to contest. Or maybe they could have just said the first runner-up in the primary should have lead the party in that particular constituency. But given the fact that this has been working over the years in the fall for public, and people are also banging on the whole concept of what sympathy vote. I think they have put her forward, but I cannot vouch that the sympathy vote alone can make her win. If the people if the people broadly do not support her candidature. Sympathy vote is good, but will it continue to work? Because it has worked at Ayawaso West Wagon, because it has worked at Shai Osudoku, because it worked for Mahama when Mills passed on. It doesn't mean it will continue to work. So let's make this another test case and see what will happen. But given the fact that like Evans mentioned, it is a kind of, it's not a done deal. It can actually swing back to the NDC. So a lot of factors need to be considered, including competence and being a party person, a grassroots person, rather than just banking on the sympathy.
I appreciate your time this morning, Dr. Ali Dussaid, who is a political scientist. Evans, you want to say something as we wrap up the conversation?
Yes, I wanted to say that we have a law that governs the internal democratic processes of political parties, and it says that the internal arrangements of a party must be democratic. Now, the question you asked in relation to that law is simply, the answer is the choice of the wife isn't satisfying that particular legislation. However, you must consider that ultimately, in defining democracy for political parties, it is in essence a system that wins them the elections. That is how they define it. And if it's in the estimation, it is a wife who will deliver them the most votes to win the seat. That is how democracy is for them. And they will find other ways. So yesterday, John Boydu tells me on Newsnight that what they've done to try and make this some semblance of democracy is to build consensus around her. So for them, that is how they're meeting that democratic criteria. Simply build consensus, and not necessarily through holding a primary to elect a successor.
Thank you very much. Evans Mensah is head of our political desk, and we've been discussing the NPP's decision to choose the wife of late MP for Mfantsiman, Ekokwansa Hayford, as the person who would be on their ticket in that constituency to become MP. And we've been discussing what appears to be a seeming trend, and we give examples of Lydia Seram Al-Hassan, who is now MP for Ayawaso West Wuogon. She came in because her partner, Boachi Tremati Ejako, passed on. And then there's also the Shayo Sudoku example, and that's with the NDC. But away from that, security expert Colonel Festus Abuaje, retired, says the move to provide members of parliament with protection is a self-centered one. The colonel argues it deepens inequality in accessing security, which he describes as security apartheid. Following the shooting of Mfantsiman West MP Ekokwansa Hayford, Interior Minister Ambrose Derry announced the assignment of 200 police officers to protect MPs. Speaking on Joy Prime Morning on Joy Prime, the retired colonel expressed his disappointment about the development.
To put it bluntly, self-centered. This tendency of parliamentarians, to look after their interests first, and sometimes not even address the interest of the rest of society. We know that the police hasn't got the numbers. We know they haven't got the requisite tools. We know that there are, a certain number that retires every year, a certain number that is forced to resign for disciplinary reasons, a certain number who may resign themselves. Now we get the picture that let's look at the executive side, let's look at the judiciary side, and then let's add the legislature. We're probably talking of a figure between 600 to 1,000 that is taken from this 37,500. The police does other duties, including international duties. There is a certain category of police officers who don't do patrols by nature of the appointments that they hold and the ranks. So we need the constables, we need the corporals, we need the sergeants, and we don't have them in enough numbers. So why do you take the little that you don't have and assign to the few? By this arrangement of yesterday, we have widened the inequalities in society. And now I've started calling it security apartheid, which is simply more security for some and less security for others.
Well, on that same show on Joy Prime, Chairman of the Defence and Interior Committee of Parliament, Seth Ichampon, revealed the minister has been summoned to outline plans to secure the safety of all Ghanaians ahead of the election. He disagrees with the retired colonel.
When we are doing Operation Calm Life, who is Operation Calm Life for? And why is Operation Calm Life being deployed? Why is Operation Conquered Fist being deployed? Who are we deploying all these operations for? These are set out programs by the established security services to help with our public safety. And all these exercises are ongoing. My next call is to find out how the deployment and what strategies are we expecting the services to offer us in the times we're in. We're in campaign mode. The tension of the country is higher now. How are we going about it? I have had opportunity by virtue of the position I occupy to have been in certain meetings and briefings. I'm expecting that the larger population hears of the arrangements that are being done. I have asked the managers of the sectors to come and offer us the status report. I'm sure when that happens this week, there will be further briefings. We will also ensure that whatever plans that are supposed to be rolled out are rolled out in the open for all to know how the larger public is going to be protected.
Let's head to Parliament now, but on a different issue. The governing MPP has officially written to Parliament asking the Speaker, Professor Aaron Michael Quay, to declare the Fomina seat in the Ashanti region vacant. MP for the area, Andrew Amankwa Esiama, who is in Parliament on the ticket of the NPP, filed his nomination to contest this year's election as an independent candidate. But MPP General Secretary John Boedu says the MP ceases to be a member of the party. So what does this mean for the MP? Parliamentary correspondent Joseph Bukugapu joins us with more. What happens next with regards to this issue, Joseph?
And so the Constitution is very categorical. Let me read Article 127 of the Constitution to you, Venice. Well, actually, Article 97(1)(j). It says, a member of Parliament shall vacate his seat in Parliament if he leaves the party of which he was a member at the time of his election to Parliament to join another party or seeks to remain in Parliament as an independent member. So Article 97(1)(g) of the Constitution is categorical that if you're a member of Parliament and you decide to leave the party on which ticket you came to the House, or you would want to remain an independent candidate, that seat has to be declared vacant. And that has to be done by the Speaker of Parliament. So a number of things could happen. First of all, if the Speaker decides to go with the route of the letter that has been brought to him by the NPP, he will go ahead and read that letter on the floor of the House and then make the points about the need for the seat to be declared vacant. And then they would go through the processes, discuss it, and officially the House would declare that vacant. That's route number one. The second route is for any member, particularly on the side of the party that he's said to have left, to then officially draw the attention of the Speaker on the floor to this. And again, the deliberations will continue. The House will discuss, and then the seat will then officially be declared vacant. So we gather that the said communication has actually come to Parliament. We're waiting for when the Speaker will go ahead and trigger those processes for the seat declared vacant.
Gakpo, we also know that the same Constitution outlines, for example, the number of days for which a by-election can be held in a build-up to an election. So there's a peculiar situation here with regards to this particular case. We are about some 54 days to the elections. Will the party be able to organize a by-election? If the seat is vacant, then it means the people that do not have a representative. How would it work?
So you rightly made the point that this is a very peculiar situation because the Constitution again makes the point that when it comes to by-elections, a by-election can only be done ahead of an election when we have a situation where the seat becomes vacant more than 6 months to the next election. And we know it's just about 2 months to the next election. So let's just cite an example. What has happened in Fanteman, the MP is dead and the people have no representation, but there will not be a by-election until the next election. So the people will not have a representation until the next election. In that same sphere, when the former seat is declared vacant, a by-election cannot be held now. We would have to wait until the next election. But just as we have the situation in Fanteman, where over the next 2 months, the people will not have a representation in Parliament because the MP has died, if Parliament goes ahead to declare this particular seat vacant, the people of Fomena will not have representation in the House until the next election. So that actually doesn't bar the Speaker from triggering the clause and declaring the seat vacant. They can go ahead and do that. And that depends on the amount of pressure that the majority will be ready and willing to pile on the Speaker in order to get done. So that's solely being left at the discretion of the Speaker. If he decides to trigger the clause, he can go ahead and do that. The fact that we are just 2 months to election doesn't bar him from doing that. And if the majority insists on having the seat being declared vacant, they can push in order to allow for that.
But if the Speaker decides not to and the majority decide not to press on him, then what, we are contravening the law?
Well, to a certain extent, yes, because the law is categorical that once the MP decides to pass it, then the seat has to be declared vacant. And so, fortunately, unfortunately, a lot of it is being left at the discretion of the Speaker in particular, who would have to take.
Quickly, Joseph, before you go, so what happens to this MP if he is expelled from the House? Does he lose any benefits?
So this will not exactly be an expulsion. It will be a case of the seat being declared vacant, because there won't be a case of him having misconducted himself leading to the seat being vacant, based on which then he would forfeit all his ex gratia. You know that usually the ex gratia is calculated based on the number of days or months you've served in Parliament, and then a percentage of that is what is calculated over the 4-year period and then given to you as a lump sum once you are leaving Parliament. So what that would mean is that after the seat is declared vacant, then the number of months he served in Parliament would not be up to 4 years. So the ex gratia would not be as much as the lump sum that his colleagues will be taking, but he will still get his ex gratia, except that it will not be the expected rate for the 4-year duration he would have served as.
Thank you very much. Joseph Opoku-Gakpo is our parliamentary correspondent, and he's been running us through the procedures the House will have to go through in the case of the Fomena MP who is seeking re-election as an independent candidate. Now, the Inspector General of Police, James Opong-Buenu, has appealed to traditional authorities and other stakeholders to be ambassadors of peace in the build-up to the December polls. He made the appeal during a visit to the Bunu East region to inspect operational readiness and capabilities of the region towards the elections. Correspondent Anas Sabit has more in this report.
Today, the Inspector General of Police, Mr. James Opong-Buenu, is in the Bunu East region on a working visit to assess the operational readiness and capabilities of the Ghana Police Service in the build-up to the December general elections. He will be paying a courtesy call on the Bunu East Regional Minister, Mr. Kofi Amoakohene, where he will be engaging him on the RCC's readiness towards ensuring that there is peace before, during, and after the general elections.
It has been a very challenging region because it's a new thing, but I must say that your men who are leading the security here has done a marvelous job. And indeed, the logistics that you have also supported the region with, of course, we will need more. But I believe that if you help us along that line, we will provide peace in support of your administration also.
The IGP assured that enough logistics and personnel will be sent to the region to improve the security of the region.
Talking about logistics, let me say that because Bunu is a new region, whatever resources that we get, definitely our attention will be here. This issue about personnel, I've just been informed that 56 more personnel will be sent to you. In fact, I'm sure very, very soon, within less than 2 weeks.
The IGP has been engaging the Nananom of the Techiman Traditional Council also, where he has called on the traditional authorities to be champions or ambassadors of peace before, during and after the December polls. We all know how the youth listen to the traditional authorities when you speak. Kindly let them know that violence does not help in solving problems.
That's a report by Anna Sobet. You're watching JoyNews Desk with me, Bernice Abubeidu-Lansa. Coming up shortly in business, we will be at Bonre in the Ashanti region, where weavers are asking government to find ways of guaranteeing a $40 million loan for a proposed yarn factory. Darrell Kwao is standing by with details. Do stay.
Hi, good morning. Welcome to business. My name is Darrell Kwao. Chief of Bonwe, Nana Bobie Ansah, is asking government to find ways of guaranteeing a $40 million loan for a proposed yarn factory in the town. According to him, the traditional authority, through managers of the One District, One Factory initiative, reached an agreement with foreign partners to provide the necessary investment needed for the project. Nana Bobie Ansah is entreating government to facilitate the process as part of its industrialization drive. He spoke when the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, cut salt for construction of a Kente museum at Bonwe. Nana Yaljima has more.
The proposed yarn factory for Bonwe is projected to boost Kente production, create jobs, and position the legendary town as the center of tradition and culture. But the loan agreed for the project is yet to be released due to delay by government to guarantee the deal. According to the traditional authorities in the Kente producing town, a reduction in cost of yarn can help reduce the cost of production for the Kente cloth. Nana Bobie Ansah wants government to show more commitment to the establishment of the yarn factory.
$40 million US dollars.
We have foreign partners who are ready to provide $40 million for the project. For 2 years now, the guarantee from the Exim Bank for the loan hasn't been received. We are pleading with the Vice President to help us get the money for the project. Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia emphasized on the need for integrated community industrial strategy in Bonwe to develop the Kente industry.
But yempese yejina yarn factory no so nana so kaye say tertiary institution.
We can't depend on the yarn factory alone. The chief requested for a tertiary institution. I think a technical vocational Kente Weaving Institute is in order.
So technical vocational now they are car factory now they are car museum now you are integrated community industrial development strategy.
The technical vocational institute, factory and museum will boost the industry. I have told the NPP candidate to see me later, so we'll discuss issues about the yarn factory. It is very important.
Because
the Minister for Tourism, Arts and Culture, Barbara Otinji, says museums will be built across the country to preserve traditional artifacts.
We
want to develop some traditional products that distinguish Ghanaians from the others. We are building a small village in northern region, in Mampong. We are building a cocoa museum. We will do a gold museum at Western Region 2. All these things project the country. We know it will also drive the economy in these areas.
In other news, the International Monetary Fund is forecasting a gross domestic product growth rate of 0.9% for this year. This is a disclosure from its latest World Economic Report. Charles Nixon-Yeboah has been looking through.
The forecast is slightly below the ones being projected by the World Bank, Fitch Solutions, and the Bank of Ghana. Whilst the World Bank is predicting a GDP growth rate that will make the country a top performer in sub-Saharan Africa, Fitch Solutions is predicting a GDP growth rate of 1.3%, also making Ghana an outperformer in the sub-Saharan African region. However, the fund is forecasting a GDP of 4.2% for next year, and that will come as a good omen for government, enterprises, and consumers as tax revenue, earnings of companies, and disposable income are expected to shoot up. The reason is due to an expected significant jump in economic activities that will stimulate demand and supply. With the exception of Ivory Coast, Ethiopia, Kenya, and Tanzania, the country will outperform 46 sub-Saharan African countries. Growth on the continent will, however, contract by 3%, with both South Africa and Nigeria recording huge negative growth rates.
And that's it for business. George Addo Jr. has some exciting news in sports right after the break.